Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday night edition of Into the Night with Sean Kelly. Hello, Cindy Simpson. Hello, Michael. Glad that you all can make it into the chat room. I have a very great guest on tonight, a very good friend of mine. Um, but before I get a little bit about him, I want to thank UPR. Hi, Kathleen. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. Um, I want to thank UPRN Talk Radio 105.3 New Orleans, 107.7 Mississippi for allowing me to spend an hour of you on Sundays and Tuesday nights. Um, my guest tonight, I've known him for a very long time, and we have done some paranormal investigations, a lot, many, and I finally got him on the show, and he's a very good dude. He's a very good paranormal investigator, and he's a very good camera guy. Um, but before I introduce him, I forgot that I want to thank Carnation for sponsoring this show tonight. And without further ado, I would like you to give you my friend Ryan O'Shea. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here, man. Thank you for coming on. What you been up to, dude?
It's been a while since I saw you last. I think our last investigation that we did together was at Hinsdale House in New York about
Yep.
2 years ago. Since then, I've still been doing the investigations. I work with a bunch of different groups doing their broadcast and media stuff. My specialty, as you know, is live streaming investigations. So
Right.
I'm always doing a lot of that and getting the word out about what's going on in the paranormal and beyond.
So and ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, he's good. He's good at what he does. I remember the other time that we actually went down to, what the hell's the name of that place over on the north side? That beer, Oktoberfest. Do you
Penn
remember?
Brewery.
Penn Brewery. Yeah, that was an interesting investigation, and he did live, and he did the live, and he does a great job. He's like one of the best. Kathleen says, "Yay, Ryan!" You know,
No,
that's
Kathleen's
cool.
great. She often helps me with a lot of the filming and stuff that I do. She goes in a lot of our investigations together. So if I'm live streaming something, there's a good chance that Kathleen's in the background helping out, making sure things run smoothly as well.
And she's also a great person too. I really very nice. I have met her a couple times, and I'm telling you, she's great. So, Ryan, how did you get into the paranormal?
So I grew up in New Brighton, Pennsylvania, in Beaver County, about an hour north of Pittsburgh. This is a river town of the Beaver River, which goes into the Ohio, and it was a very important stop on the Underground Railroad in the
Hmm.
1860s for enslaved people who were trying to make their way north and escape to freedom. And directly across the street from the house that I grew up in was the Merrick Art Gallery, which back then was a train station. Directly outside in New Brighton was a railroad line. And my house
Hmm.
was actually an inn for people who were traveling on the railroad. They would stay overnight in my house, which was built in 1848. And my house was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad. There have been reported deaths in the house. There have been reported funerals in the house. There have been reported deaths outside in front of the house because of the trains going by. People occasionally trains would strike people, and of course there were the enslaved people that moved through my house as a safe house. So growing up in that house, it was the known haunted house in the town. You know how every town has that house that
Yeah.
all the kids know that's the haunted house. That was my
Hmm.
house. I had a lot of strange experiences there. I've heard footsteps, my doors open, things have moved. I always had weird sensations in certain areas of the house. But despite all of that, I'm still fairly skeptical. I know that something strange was happening, but I'm not willing to jump to the extent of it was ghosts or spirits. So I do come at this from a very skeptical standpoint. I don't believe that ghosts exist necessarily, but I want them to exist and I want to find evidence of that. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I've always wanted to get involved with paranormal investigations growing up, knowing
Hmm.
that this was a thing that I could get into, and I ended up getting a job at WTAE, the ABC television affiliate in Pittsburgh. And one of the very first things I wanted to do when I got the job at WTAE was shine light on the paranormal. And I contacted you. We got in touch. And I remember my first official investigation that I did was at the John K. Tenner Memorial Library in
Yeah.
Charleroi. That you invited me
Okay.
out to. So that was my first investigation. So, Sean, that was probably close to a decade ago at this point, and thank you for getting me
Yeah.
involved with investigating.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. And I do remember now that you mentioned the Tenor Library. Now I know exactly what it was. Yeah, that was a very good investigation. Now, Carrie Lynn, hello. Kathleen Wilson says thanks, Sean. Karen, hi, Karen. Good to see you. Karen Paulus. And Michael's going to get some coffee. But what I'm really interested in, what you just said about the skeptical part of the investigation. Hey, Brent, Gary, good to see you. The skeptical part, and there were many times that we were on investigations, and I don't want to say put me in my place, but what I really enjoyed with you being in the group was giving your own side opinion, you know what I mean, of the situation. We never came to blows with, what we believed in, what we thought it was. But you were very good at kind of like putting me in my place. I'm going to put it that way, straight out, which was okay for me. Hi, Cindy Coon. Good to see you. Welcome.
Hello,
Uh,
Cindy.
I would like to. Yeah, Cindy's a good person, man. You ever been to her place down there?
Oh, it's
And
great. I love it.
I love it too. Yeah, Bel Air, Ohio is some creepy place. Nothing about Bel Air, Ohio, guys. You guys are a bunch of beautiful people, but there's a lot of haunted stuff down there. A lot of
If
haunted
anyone
houses.
hasn't been to the Ross House, it's definitely a good place to go. It's connected to an antique store, an old furniture store as well. So you have the option of exploring both areas, both the business and the home itself. There's the chinchilla room there, which is one of my favorites, an area where they actually used to skin and sell the skins of chinchillas. So I'm always trying to
Yeah.
contact the chinchilla spirits there, but it's in a very interesting place. And you're right, Bel Air, Ohio, so much history there. Belmont County in general is a fascinating place. I love that area.
Karen Paulus has question. Ryan, you're from New Brighton? Question mark. I
Yep,
have
I
family
grew up
there.
in New Brighton in Beaver County. I went to New Brighton High School, graduated in 2008. I now live down in Washington County in the Washington, PA area, but I'm constantly back up in New Brighton. I still own property there. The home that I was mentioning earlier, the Underground Railroad home that I grew up in, I still own that property. So I'm up there quite often.
I that cool. Thank you for sharing that, Cindy. I hope now, Karen. I hope that was okay because Karen's good people too. She's a good investigator. But I want to get to the skeptical side. Um, can you please, talk more about it? I just want to say, have you ever ran into another person who is in the paranormal that gave you a bunch of grief on what you thought?
Yeah, so let me specify what I mean by that term because I think it's thrown around a lot. A lot of people that go to paranormal investigations call themselves skeptics, and what I often find out that they mean by that is they'll try at least one or two other explanations before they say something is a ghost, but they still land on that it's a ghost. When I say skeptic, I mean that in the truest sense of the word. I am very fact based, and I want to see strong evidence for something before I believe it. At the same time, there is literally nothing that I can think of that I would ever say is impossible. So any existence you can think of, any cryptid or ghost or spirit or explanation, I would say, yeah, there's a chance that that's correct. We should investigate it further. Now, there are some things that are so the chances of them being possible are so minute and foreign that we probably shouldn't spend too much of our time investigating those things further. But to me, like there are obviously strange things that people are reporting, whether that
Hmm.
is an actual haunting, whether that is something going on with the physical location, something going on with the energies in the area there, something going on with that person themselves and it's biological or physiological. There's something happening in a lot of these places and it needs investigated further. And while I would say that I don't believe in ghosts, I am certainly not shutting down the possibility of them. And I want to find evidence of them if they exist. And I will be the first to tell you, I've experienced things that I can't explain. So I've heard what
Hmm.
I thought were disembodied voices and sounds. I've had some very interesting activity using paranormal equipment like cat balls or spirit boxes. I've heard footsteps. There's things that I can't explain. I'm just not ready to jump to that's the spirit of a deceased person, because there are many other things that it could also possibly be. So that's typically how I come at this. The other part of that is I take investigations very seriously. I say
That's
investigations
true.
in the most serious sense of the word. I Now these aren't like strict scientific experiments or anything. These are in the natural environment. There's a lot of contamination. There's many things that could go wrong, but I want to take this seriously. I would never ever fake anything. I know there's a lot of accusations of that going on in the paranormal, especially for people who are posting it online and on social media and making videos, which is what I do. Yes, it is true that there is an incentive out there for people who are posting paranormal content to fake things. That is never something that I would ever do. So there's no risk of that. And I want to make it clear that we shouldn't, as paranormal investigators, accept people who fake things and put it off as real. That's definitely something that should never happen.
I totally agree with you like that on that. And ladies and gentlemen, Ryan is like very serious in investigating. So when it, like you said, you were looking for the hard evidence of a ghost. What would be considered hard evidence for you?
Yeah, to me, I want to have direct communication with an entity that I can verify. So like if I were to talk to someone and the spirit tells me that they are buried somewhere, I have that concrete information. I go check that information and I see that they are in fact buried there. And especially if it's information that's not publicly available, like if they were murdered or something and we find their body, to me that would be clear stuff. Or just getting information that I could verify with a third party, that I wouldn't be able to know otherwise, to me would be strong indication of that this is real. Or the ability to make things replicable. So if you're able to say repeatedly, move the cat ball, and the cat ball moves on demand every time without fail, that would be evidence.
Right.
We have that happen occasionally where a cat ball will move once or twice, or a REM pod will go off, but it's hard to get that to happen consistently. And I understand that what I'm asking of the spirits or whatever entity we're communicating with at that point, or potentially communicating with, that's a hard ask. It may take a lot of work for them to do those things. They're probably not very easy. There's a lot of issues that could be in play there. So I realize it's a high bar to set, but that's what I think would prove it to me. And not only just me, but prove it to society at large too, that we are dealing with something quite real here. And I know that a lot of people will say that they've had an experience that they know it's real regardless. It's real for
Right.
them. They've experienced that. Sean, you may be in that boat as well. And I want to make
Yes.
clear that I'm not challenging those people. I fully respect what they believe. I might not share their belief at this point, but I certainly don't hold anything against them. There are a lot of people that adopt the name skeptic that are very condescending, very close minded, won't listen to anything that they can't understand, or think they know the answers to everything. I'm certainly not that person. I come at this with a very open mind.
Um, I'm right there with you. Let's see. Freighter Crow says good evening,
Hello, Crow.
and Augie, good to see you, man. Welcome on, Augie Door. He says hello, Swan and Ryan. But and I totally agree with you on that. Now, like you, at the beginning, when I first started back in 2006, when I first started PPS, okay, I mean, I literally would go tooth and nail. You know what I mean? Especially when it came down to the orbs. You know what I mean? Um, because at that time, TAPS was on TV. Okay, and you had to be a TAPS family member. It made you feel prestigious, you know. But of course, being me, I never became a TAPS family member, and you had to go by their rules and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, did I get into a lot of fights? Arguing, not fist fights, but arguing.
Sean, you getting into arguments? That's so unlike you. I can't imagine that, Sean.
It did. You didn't see me back in 2006, brother. Oh, yeah. Carrie Lynn says we can have respectful communication and not share the same beliefs. True. Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, Mike. Happy Mother's Day to every mother out there. Happy
Happy
Mother's Day, I
Mother's Day.
forgot to say. But yeah, and I mean, there were times that I would have an open investigation and I would bring on people who never investigated, but they gave it some bad energy, mojo, and they were so apt to um, decline everything, like say like we were fake, we were this, we were doing this, and we were doing that, and it really bothered me, but I never ever turned them away from an investigation. And what happened was there were a lot of times where I say, well, come on an investigation with us and we will see, just see for yourself. And you know what? The majority of the time that the people that I did talk that were supposed to be skeptical or skeptics, they would get either pushed, their hair pulled, or touched. You know what I mean? And and then they kind of like come after the investigation, say, Sean, I got pushed, I got pinched, or whatever. And I said, well, welcome to my world, you know. But
Or
I
they are
was never
afraid. I noticed that a lot of skeptics who say they don't believe in anything are also very scared to be in those locations, and they won't do a solo, they won't do an isolation session. They're
right.
nervous to be there, and I'm like, well, if you're a skeptic, what are you possibly afraid of? But there's a lot of that I notice as well.
Oh my God, too much. Michael says Happy Mother's Day, and he also said taps were very opinionated on orbs. Sean Bowman, good to see you, buddy. Good, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Good to see you. Yeah, so it's good to see you here, Sean. In fact, I'd like to get you on the show pretty soon, there, Sean.
Sean's
I'd
great.
just,
He's a great leader of Bump the Night Society along with Jen and Mikey. They're a team that I do a lot of work with. Definitely get them on the show.
I'm definitely will. And but so I kind of like let them go and do their thing and get pinned, scratched, bit, whatever the hell happens to them. And even though I tell them no, I told you so, I told you so. You know what I mean? Um, I just like, okay, welcome to my world, and let it be. But I know of other paranormal groups out there that I see on TikTok and I see on YouTube and stuff like that, and they're just vicious with their people. You know that it's disgusting, Brian, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, there is a lot of contention that doesn't need to be there in the paranormal community at large, and how with the paranormal community, how they interact with society and people that don't believe these types of things. I am very much not with the drama at all. I will have a respectful conversation with anyone. I'll have a fact-based conversation with anyone. I'm very kind of like level-headed, so I don't let my emotions get in the way too much. But I think in general, we just need to be open and respectful. And no matter what your opinion is, if you go into a conversation in an open-minded and respectful way, I think there's good that can come of that. There's just a lot of people that don't adhere to that for whatever reason.
And Kathleen says I despise drama, and so do I. That was one of the main reasons why I retired, and it just too much. People had egos, and have you? I'm sure you have experienced other groups, other people who are in the paranormal field experience egos. What do you think?
Yeah,
Could you please
I don't
share?
think that's unique to the paranormal. I mean, I think any subcategory or interest or hobby group, not that paranormal is any of those things, but anytime you get a group of people that are passionate about a thing, you're going to have people that fit that bill. There's certainly a lot of that in the paranormal, and there's even like subdivisions of the paranormal, right? There's the cryptid community, there's the UFO UAP community, there's the ghost hunters or the spirit investigators. All of these different subcategories have people that match exactly what you say, that don't get along well without others, that don't have the social skills to interact, that think they are the best or they know everything. And like I said, I try to work with everyone. I try to be friendly with everyone, but there are those people out there that are just kind of like toxic to stuff that maybe it's best to avoid. But I try to be even friendly and open with them as well as much as I can.
And you know, when you're in with when you're out with toxic people, you know you're not going to have a good investigation at all.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
There's definitely stuff out there that, you know, the paranormal can get quite clicky. There's certain groups that coalesce around certain types of ideas, and they will have arguments or disagreements with people who are of another group, and it can get quite tribal. And I like to avoid that as much as possible. But one thing I wanted to hit on when you were talking about some of the skeptical aspect of things is that we need to consider what we're actually communicating with, right? It could be quite
Mhm.
possible that what we all refer to as ghosts is not necessarily the spirit of a deceased person. It could be a person from a parallel timeline or our own timeline that is recursive and touching back on ourselves, or perhaps someone from the future, or some other weird thing of physics that we don't understand or comprehend yet. I think it's less important to talk about do ghosts exist or not, and more important to question, are we interacting with any type of entity? And if so, what is that type of entity? It's
Yeah.
not like if we found out tomorrow that these aren't the souls of deceased people, I would stop being interested in it. I still want to find out whatever is happening here. And I have a lot of interesting theories about what that could possibly be, should it exist. But I want to find out more, and I want to keep experimenting with technology and methods of investigating and methods of finding out more, to see how far we can take this.
And so do I, sir. And so do I. But you brought up a good point about could it be from somebody from the future? Michael Anthony says quantum aspects. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, if you
Um,
know much about the theories of quantum physics, one of the leading theories to explain the world that we live in now and the quantum states of superpositions that matter can exist in is that once we dissolve that superposition of an object and measure it in its state, one of the main theories out there is that we are literally in that moment creating a whole nother world, a whole nother space
yes,
of existence where timelines diverge. This isn't science fiction. This isn't people thinking about this on podcasts like we are. These are the leading physicists and scientists in the world that are competing for Nobel Prizes, talking about that worlds are created all the time. And could we be communicating with perhaps one of those other worlds, one of our other selves, one of those departing timelines? There's a lot of interesting work to be done there, I think, on the scientific side. And I think it'd be very good for the paranormal community to investigate more of that as well, to the extent possible.
now in my in all the years I've been in, there's really not too many people on the scientific side. Okay, um, I don't know if it's changed where there's more people that want to do scientific. What do they call it? Experiments. Um, but when I started, you know, everybody would say that they're scientific. Basically, they were, you know, that nasty word skeptics, and they just wanted to prove it wrong. Um, you know what? There were times where a person could have a full blown apparition, and you show it to somebody, and they'll laugh at you, say that's nothing. You know what I mean? You know, just like,
Yeah, people are
but
so quick to dismiss things, and I definitely think that shouldn't be the case. To what you said there, that there's a lot of that you're not seeing a lot of people approaching this with a scientific minded focus. I totally agree with you there. I think there should be more of that. I'm trying personally to be that person. And I'll tell you, it's hard when you start talking quantum physics and interdimensional beings and things like that. There's a lot of people in the paranormal community that get turned off by that. And there's a lot of
right.
people in the physics community and the science community that get turned off by that too. So I'm trying to combine both of these kind of divergent communities together and try to find commonalities between them. And there is quite a bit of pushback there. But I think as long as I keep getting out there and spreading the word and talking about these theories and ideas and this type of investigating and this focus of investigating, I think people are going to gather around that as well. And I think this is going to be a new type of movement in the paranormal community of trying to take the leading theories in physics and apply them to the paranormal to see if we can find a place where these spheres converge. And I really want to be the person that pushes that forward.
That would be awesome. I got your back on that one, dude. Michael Anthony says past, present, and future, and he says I did it to prove the facts. And he has done some stuff to prove that the interdimensional and stuff like that. But okay, now we got all that out. I'd like to. What's it like for you when you go and you start videoing for a paranormal group and do it on live? What do you do? What's your preparation for it?
Yeah, so I am very interested in history. I love to learn the history of a location, and there are so many paranormal groups that will go live and they don't really give context for the location. You might just be swiping through social media, you see someone investigating somewhere, you don't really know where they are or what's going on or who's there or what devices they're using. And I really try to keep explaining throughout the live. In addition to filming them, I kind of host them as well. I'll introduce the location, I'll introduce the people, I'll talk about the stories that happen there so that the audience gets a sense of not only what is happening live during the paranormal investigation, but why we're asking the questions we're asking, why we chose this location to be at, what the stories
Mhm.
are there, what the histories are there. I really try to present it in an informative way so that even if you're not getting any takeaways from the investigation itself, you leave with some takeaway about the building and the property and the history. And another thing about the live streaming is it is very, very difficult. I mean, a lot of people can go live from their phones. To do that, you're likely not, you're likely in a place with good cellular connection. You're probably not on night vision, so you have visible light around so that the cameras on your phones work. It's not very interactive. But for me, I have thousands and thousands of dollars invested in my equipment so that I can go live from the basements of prisons in the middle of nowhere in, 3 feet thick concrete walls beneath the ground. I can typically go live from these places, and I go live with a mobile camera that's wireless with night vision that can be fully interactive like we are here today, interacting with comments, allowing the audience to interact with the investigation, showing their comments on the screen. I can do all of that from my shoulder camera rig. And I think that really adds a lot of value to the investigation for the
It
people
does.
that are watching it, but also for the people that are participating in the investigation, because then they leave there with a quality piece of content that they can refer to and remember and cite back. And they don't need to have their own memories to say, remember when this happened. Or if they do record the video and release it later, there's the potential that people could say, you edited that video, you did something in post production. But no, I am broadcasting things live directly from the camera as they happen. So I think there's an element of transparency there that is good for everyone. And I think that's important to have in the paranormal.
And now, what was the most craziest thing you ever caught live?
Hmm. So there have been many different things that have happened. One of the ones that really sticks out to me just happened about a week ago. Bump in the Night Society had a charity conference in Pittsburgh, raising money for a cancer charity, and we had an event. And that night, we went to the Bain Memorial Library in Bellevue.
I was
Quite
there. I Yeah.
Yes, it's a great location, quite a haunted location. And we were on the third floor, and during the live broadcast, a cat ball that was on the table started not just lighting up, but actually rolling. And it rolled, I calculated it, it rolled for about 12 seconds, changing speed and direction multiple times before falling on the floor. And this is one that's been looked at by a lot of people. They couldn't explain it. There were a lot of people that don't believe in the paranormal that saw that video and actually thought that it absolutely, without a doubt, had to be a remote controlled toy and that we were
Are you
faking it
serious?
or that we were using magnets under the table to move it. There was a lot of ridiculous theories out there, but like I said, we don't fake anything. Or I'll speak for myself.
Mm-mm.
The people that I work with, I certainly don't know of them faking anything. If they did fake things, I wouldn't be working with them. But speaking
Right.
specifically for myself, I would never knowingly fake anything. And
Oh,
this
I know
happened.
that.
This cat ball started rolling for 12 seconds, and I thought of the best explanation that I could. But even that is like, really, does that really make sense that you can think of that it started moving on its own? That
Right.
was a great piece of evidence, and it's on my Facebook page if people want to go check it out. It's on the Bump in the Night Society Facebook page as well. Contact me if you want to see it. I can send you a link if you can't find it. But this is a great piece of content. This cat ball rolling.
And to me that was, I saw the video, dude, and I was like, yeah, that's for real.
Yeah,
You
there
know
were two people that were like actually on camera during that, and they were both doing an SD session. So they were, couldn't see, couldn't hear, were just calling out what they were experiencing over the spirit box. So the only person that was aware of what was happening in the room was Kathleen, who called out what was happening on the live, and also anyone who was watching the live. So the people watching the live got to experience something that the people in the room didn't even know was happening, which I think is a very interesting situation.
that was a way interesting situation. We got a couple comments here. Sean Bowman says the Ryan Seacrest of the paranormal.
That's what they call me because I do all the hosting of their things. They call me Ryan Seacrest.
Kaysen, he's my friend. He says, hi, Sean. Kathleen, she's cute. She goes, the great cat ball controversy of 2024. Yeah, so I've been part of many of your lives, and I have to say, everybody, he does a great job. Um, and like you, if I saw somebody trying to pull some fakeness on us, right, they'd be gone. They would be gone. Don't I hate fakers. I hate people who try to manipulate to get the good evidence. Do you know what I mean? I remember a long, long, long time ago, I did an investigation. It was a bar over, um, I forget the name of the bar, but it was in the cellar. I saw somebody push a mirror to make it fall on the ground. And it was on video. And I'm like, no more. You can't do this with me no more. It really ticked me off. But now that we got that part done, do you want to share something with the people
Yeah. So one thing
that's
I did
coming
want to
up?
mention is that Bump in the Night Society, who I just mentioned doing the investigation with, that we did the cat ball video with, we are the media sponsors this year of the Ohio State Reformatory's Parapsychon coming up this Friday, May 17th, with the VIP ghost hunt and meet and greet. And then it continues all weekend. So the 18th and 19th, this upcoming weekend, Mansfield Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, also known as the Ohio State Reformatory, the prison where they filmed Shawshank Redemption, if you're familiar with
Yeah.
that movie. If you haven't been to Parapsychon, this is always one of the events of the year. Over 100 vendors, I believe, over 3 days of programming, celebrity guest speakers. We are going to be broadcasting live paranormal investigations from the off limits sub basement of the reformatory while the conference is going on upstairs. So that will be very exciting. I've been going there for four or 5 years in a row now. It's always one of my favorites events of the year. And really, to attend, all you need to do is pay for admission to the Ohio State Reformatory, which is
Hmm.
a self-guided tour of the prison itself. If you haven't been there, it's one of my favorite locations in the world. It also includes multiple museums. There's the kind of corrections history museum. There's an industrial history museum. And then there's the Shawshank Redemption Museum as well,
Oh,
all
wow.
in the building. And then you get access to all of those things in addition to the celebrity speakers, and you get to tour the building. So come check it out if you haven't been there before. This year, it's extra special because it's co-located with Hearse Mania. So we're going to have dozens of hearses in the parking
Oh.
lot doing a hearse parade and showing themselves off. That's a great
That
event as
was
well. So definitely come check that out. I hope to see you there at the Ohio State Reformatory.
um, now. Sean Bowman says he can't wait. River Rose, who's my buddy from Tennessee, she says, "Good evening, Sean and Ryan and everyone." Kathleen says, "Parapsychon is amazing. I love it in the location." and Cindy might take a drive up there on Sunday.
Cindy, come on
So
up. I'd love to see you.
yeah, I love Cindy, man. She's a good person. She's a great person. But let me ask you, are you going to have speakers at this thing, or what's if you are, who's coming to speak at this place?
Yeah, so there
Parasite.
are a number of speakers there. Let me pull up the full agenda on the website. So I don't know. There are special guests, whether they are just attending as the VIP meet and greet event, whether they're vending throughout the weekend, and there's some speakers. So I'm just going to give you a list of the celebrities in general. The speaker lineup might differ from this, but in general, you can expect to experience Katrina Weidman is going to be there. Heather Taddy is
Hmm.
going to be there. John Zaffis, Dave Schrader. We're going to have Brian Cano. There's a number of people that are going to be there speaking throughout the event. One that I'm pretty excited about is D'Angelo Williams. Some former NFL players are going to be
Yeah,
there that are now very
yeah,
interested in the paranormal. So that'll be an
that's cool.
interesting one. And Sean, who's on the chat now, is going to be very excited now. Sean Bowman about this one. Violent J of Insane Clown Posse is going to be there as well. Just a recent announcement. So that'll be an interesting one as well. There's so many people to meet there from the paranormal world. Such a
Right.
cross section of the communities coming out. So definitely come check it out.
Now, would this be Joe? Hey, Joe, good to see you. Welcome, buddy. Good to see you. And Sean says violent J, yes. But now, is this like one of the biggest paranormal cons going on now
I
on
would
the
say
East
so.
Coast?
It's definitely certainly one of my favorites. The types of people that it gathers, it's certainly not to be missed. I know I spend multiple days there every year. And really, I mean, you just can't get over the location, the Ohio State Reformatory. I can't say it enough. If you haven't been there before, put it on your list. And this is a great time because now this isn't necessarily an investigation time unless you pay for the Friday night VIP investigation with the special guest, which I would recommend that you do. But if you just come for the event itself, the good thing about it is this venue is so huge that even though there's so many people there for the conference, you could easily find yourself the only person in one of the rooms at the location, in which case bust out a K2 meter and do a little mini investigation. You know, there's always time to experience this building, and there's so many places and cells to explore.
Um, Joe Fox says hello to you, Ryan. He says hello to you.
Hello, Joe.
So now, this sounds really interesting, and I really can't do it this year, but maybe hopefully I can get to it next year. But let's talk equipment, okay? Out of all the equipment that is out there now for the paranormal fields, what are some of your favorites that you like to use?
So this might not be hard to believe, but because I am a person who works in video, I love it. The camera. The camera is so great, particularly ones that see light spectrums that the human eye cannot. So even something simple like night vision cameras uses infrared light that the human eye cannot pick up to help us see what's going on in a dark environment. And you can
Hmm.
increase that even more. You can get further into the infrared spectrum or further into the ultraviolet spectrum and really start seeing wavelengths of light that the human eye cannot. And there's who knows what could be around us right now. We are surrounded by radio waves and X-rays and the cosmic microwave background radiation all around us right now that we can't see because our eyes can only pick up a very narrow band of electromagnetic radiation. But cameras can help us see more than that. Other devices like EMF meters can help us pick up more than that. But one of the pieces of equipment that I am currently very excited about is Lauren Hellickson, who you may have heard of, creates her own equipment. And she not only is very scientifically minded and technically minded like I am, but she is also quite an artist. So she has been making her crystal pods, which are essentially proximity sensor type devices, similar to a REM pod. We don't really want to use that
Okay.
term. That light up and interact with energies. But they are also decorated with crystals, which some might see as just an aesthetic beauty thing to have these nice crystals on top of it. And
Right.
others who believe in the powers that crystals might have could see that energies from the crystals could help give the spirits power or help change the situation in some way. So Lauren does amazing work. If you want to look at her stuff, it's Lauren Haunts or Liliana Marie Creative are her two kind of brands that she goes by. But she makes some incredible equipment that is probably some of my favorite right now.
That's interesting about the crystals, and she's right, because crystals have so much energy that come out of them that, yeah, it would be a good thing to use to contact spirits or draw them into the equipment that she uses. Kathleen Wilson says it's the 30th anniversary of the Shawshank Redemption, too. Joe Fox says, just like the Northern Lights, I couldn't see any Keller without looking through the camera. And my friend Kaysen says, I never heard of this before. He says, how about the Delco method? Have you ever heard of that?
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Yeah, the Delco method, I think that's basically Estes, but it uses a different type of goggle to change the light that you see. It really kind of gives you some more visual hallucinations, possibly visions in your eyes, as far as I know. I've never done it myself, but I'd be interested in experimenting with it.
Let's go do it.
I may have got that explanation wrong, so if I did say that
Okay.
incorrectly, feel free to correct me in the comments there.
I'm sure they will. They will. But can you please explain? Being around the paranormal for so long, can you please tell me what full spectrum means and how it works? And I know there's people out here listening to the show tonight and in the chat room that don't really know about the full spectrum.
Yeah, so full spectrum is, I mentioned the types of electromagnetic radiation and how we can see visible light with the human eye and how we can turn on night vision to see infrared light, or how there are other cameras and sensors that see in the ultraviolet spectrum. Now, typically, if you are using like a FLIR camera or an infrared camera, you are seeing a type of light or radiation that the human eye cannot see, but you're also not seeing visible light in that image. And
Right.
there are kind of filters built into many of the cameras that we use today to filter out a lot of the infrared and ultraviolet light that is coming into the camera sensor so that it doesn't make its way to the finished picture, and the finished picture comes out in a way that it matches what our eyes would see, which is very useful if you're trying to take a picture of something. You want to capture what your eyes are seeing. But if you take
Okay.
those filters out of the cameras, some of that infrared and ultraviolet light gets through to the sensor, and it combines
Okay.
with the visual light to show you a more full picture of what was actually present. And that comes out looking very distorted on many cameras. It kind of has like a
Hmm.
purpley yellow hue to it. But really what you're seeing there is ultraviolet and infrared light also on the picture as well. So it's a way to get a more full picture of what was there. People often use this to see if there's perhaps any entities or movements or orbs or anything like that in a picture that perhaps our eyes could not see. So if you see any
Okay.
videos or pictures that kind of like look purple, there's a good chance that's a full spectrum image.
Okay. Cool. I never really got into the aspects of full spectrum cameras and any of the equipment. And you know that I'm more on the spiritual side of things.
No, I can
Mark
totally
Eddy's,
understand that. You mentioned my favorite piece of equipment. I know a lot of people say that their own bodies are their favorite piece of equipment, and I
yes, to me.
don't discount that at all. I think
Hmm.
your own sensations and your feelings and what's happening with you biologically and physiologically is very important to consider on investigations. In fact, I have this kind of advanced Fitbit here that is constantly monitoring my heart rate and my stress level and my oxygen levels and my breathing and my sleep. And I wear that on all my paranormal investigations. And I actually want to increase the amount of biological and physiological sensors that I'm wearing on investigations. And I
Okay.
would like to get some of my team members to do that as well. So that if someone
Uh-huh.
says, hey, did you feel that? Or did you hear that? Or did you sense that? Or did your temperature just drop? Well, now we all have evidence on our wrists that is documented that we can look up and pull up later and compare. So I agree with the human body and the spiritual side of things being such a good, important part of investigating. And there's a way to even bring the science and the data collection to that as well.
Maybe Sean Bowman, he can contact whoever makes Fitbit and say, hey, listen, we will advertise your watches for you, to let us have a couple of them. You know what I mean? But that's just here and there. But Mark Eddy says hello. Cindy Coon says, I have a ton of crystals in my place, but there are pumps out there that have crystals inside of it. Have you heard of that, Brian?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces of equipment now that I've noticed that have quartz or selenite or other types of crystals kind of built into them. I love those types of equipment because, forgetting whether the crystals are functional or not, they look amazing. They look great. I love the look of the crystals with the technology. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic. But getting beyond that, if they are functional in any way, of course, let's experiment with that. Let's try that. As I mentioned, I'm a skeptic, so I don't want to, necessarily assign any metaphysical properties to crystals or anything like that. That said, I have crystals of my own. I sleep with one on my pillow. I have them by my bed. These are things
Right?
that I'm interested in, regardless. What's it going to hurt? So if there's a chance that it could be
Sure.
helpful and useful, let's experiment with it.
And I agree with you 100% there, brother. Okay, now we're getting pretty close. I got about 6, 7 minutes left, my friend. Um, First of all, I really am. I'm really glad that you got to come on the show here. Really am. It was good to catch up on things before the show. But what is your top three favorite places to go and investigate it, or you have been to that invest? What's your three top?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. I think this is great on the radio show. You've had this going for a while, and I'm like, when's Sean gonna ask me to be on? But I'm glad to reconnect with you now. This was amazing. My top three places. I love anything that people typically wouldn't be able to see because they are kind of like abandoned and decrepit and falling down. I love the energy of those types of places, and I love places that have had a lot of history and energy within them in the past. So talking like
Okay.
hospitals or asylums or prisons are a big one. Any of those types of large locations that have had a lot of emotion in them, a lot of history in them, and then historical locations in general are some of my favorite places. So the obvious ones then would be Trans-Allegheny in Weston, West Virginia is one of my favorites. Mansfield Reformatory is absolutely one of my favorites. Another one that is not just a specific location, kind of like an area, is I love Old West mining history and mining history in general. I think Bump
Yeah.
in the Night Society has an investigation coming up fairly soon in Tarentum. It's a mine out there, which I am extremely excited about. But then, like places like Virginia City in Nevada, where it's so
Hmm.
much mining history in a small area with so many saloons and murders and taverns and things like that out there, like the Washoe Club, the Bucket of Blood Saloon. So many things out there that are one of my favorite places to be as well.
Oh, my. To, they have ghost towns out there, out west,
Yeah,
and not so much mining ghost towns, but regular ghost towns. And I every now and then I'll catch something on YouTube um, for watching it, and I wouldn't mind heading out there. I'm going to be 62 in June, and then 5 more years I'm going to retire, and I'm going to get my camper, dude, and I'm heading out west. I really
Brain,
am
take me
because
with you. Let's go, Sean. Let's go.
we can do that, man. We can do that. But so what is your favorite? I said the top three, but all in all, out of all the investigations that you've been on, what was your favorite? Where at?
Favorite single investigation. Um, that is quite a hard question. We did one in the old, I always get this wrong, the old hospital on College Hill. I always want to say it's the old college on Hospital Hill, in West Virginia, right along the Kentucky border. This was probably actually now that I think about it, this was exactly 1 year ago today, I think, that we did this
Mhm.
investigation. And that was one of my favorites just because it was an area that I hadn't been to before. It is in the heart of Hatfield and McCoy warfare
Oh, wow.
territory. So there's so much history there we got to explore. And then just this old town, in the heart of Appalachia, whatever you want to call it. Jen from
Mhm.
Bump the Night Society, we have a lot of disagreement about that. But there's so much going on in this town, in this location. And we actually have another public coming up there on November 2nd with Bump in the Night Society. So if anyone wants to get tickets to that to come investigate with us, that will be a location that you can come check out. We have another one coming up on August 24th at the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber, not far from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. If you haven't been there, that is a wonderful location as well. It is a huge building. The biggest Ouija board in the world, or one of them, is on the roof of this hotel, and there's various themed rooms in it, such as a vampire room, a sea monster room, a werewolf room. It's a wonderful place as well.
I've seen a picture with you and Jason and Kathy and Jason's wife. I forgot her name.
Nina.
I'm sorry about that. Nina, yes. Michael Anthony says, great show. Sean Bowman says, the mayor and the owner is a Hatfield. I did not know that. And Kathleen says, all the Hatfield McCoy history was phenomenal, which is true, Kathleen, because I did do a lot of reading up there. Michael says, the city of the dead. Cindy Coombs said, Michael says, the city of the dead, and Cindy Coombs says it was a great show.
One place I want to
Kathleen
mention
Wilson,
quickly that I haven't been to yet, but I'm looking forward to getting to. I know that your radio show is broadcast in New Orleans. I want to get down there. That is absolutely on my list. Haven't been there yet. I need to explore. Every time I see videos or images of that place, it's absolutely calling to me. So New Orleans, I'm coming for you.
and you know what? I can hook you up with my the guy who owns the platform here, and he'll be more than happy to take you out.
That would be
No,
great.
but thank you again for coming on tonight, my friend. Sorry we couldn't get into what you do for robotics, AI, stuff like that. Maybe if you would like to um, come back, maybe down the road a little bit, we can talk about the AI and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Because there's
We have a lot more to talk about, Sean. So let's do a round two at some point.
that's cool. All right, my friend, you have a good night, and thank you again for being on. And we're going to catch up soon, okay?
Thanks. You too.
All right, bye now. Well, wasn't that was an awesome show. I'm glad that a lot of people were very active in the chat room tonight. Ryan is a good person. He's a very good investigator. I've known him for a long time. But it is time to go. This Tuesday, I have a show coming up, um, and hope to see you all there. Children, if you can, please go to your parents, give them a hug, and tell them that you love them. And parents, please go to your children and give them a hug and tell them that you love them. And if you have no parents or no children, find somebody, give them a hug, and tell them that you love them. Because those three words, I love you, go a long way. And on that note, everybody, good night. Cindy, good night. Sean Bowman, thank you. Kathleen, you definitely need to get Ryan back. I do. I will definitely get Kathleen back. Kathleen, I'll get you on too one day, Moby. I'll bring you on with him. Sean, I would love to have you on the show as a guest so we could talk about your group. And on that note, good night, everybody, and see you Tuesday night.